you ever felt frustrated, overwhelmed, or stuck wasting time in admin instead of growing, leveraging, and scaling your business? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Delegate to Elevate, the podcast that's all about handing off what you don't need to do so you can focus on what you do best. So here's your host, Bonnie Schutz.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Delegate to Elevate. Get beep done. Thank you for joining me today. I have a guest with me today that I had the pleasure of meeting this past January, and her name is Rona Jobe, and she is the CEO of Level Up Strategies, a dynamic business innovator, and a champion for small businesses and career growth. With over 20 years of experience spanning nonprofits, enterprise, and government consulting, Rona is passionate about seeing progress in individuals and organizations. As a U.S. Foreign Service spouse and first-generation immigrant, she's navigated cultures worldwide from the U.S. to Brazil and Philippines, bringing a global perspective to her work. She advocates for women and minorities in business, serves on multiple local organization boards, and calls Arlington, Virginia home with her husband, 3 kids, and 2 dogs. I gotta love the pups. Hi, Rona. It's so good to see you again today. I missed you.
Hi, Bonnie. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yes. So like I said, folks, I met her when my company was being inducted along with hers by the Department of Defense in support of MSEP, a military spousal employment partnership, right?
Yep.
That's sometimes a lot for me to get out.
It's a mouthful.
But yes, we just hit it off so well. And I just had to have her on the podcast today because I would love to hear her experience. And not to mention that Level Up Strategies is a great name because, you know, as you heard in the intro to this podcast, the little gal singing level up, level up, level up. So, hey, we are so in sync. We are so in tandem. Yay. So Rona and I were chatting a little bit before the show, and we have lots of opinions and lots of tips, tricks, and things we can share with you. So Rona, tell me a little bit more about what you do, what your life is like, and your experience with delegation, how you delegate, what you delegate, and who you help.
Thanks, Bonnie. I'm so happy to do that. As you all know, Level Up Strategies, or maybe you don't know, Level Up Strategies was built to really help small businesses and to help small businesses get to their next level of their entrepreneurship, of their company, while at the same time helping foreign service spouses and military spouses get to the next level of their career. So when I first started taking on clients at Level Up, the idea was coming up a lot of like, small business owners need to delegate. Oh my gosh, they have so much on their plate. Oh my gosh, they have this and they have that. And they have on average 15 jobs as an entrepreneur, right? I talk to my clients about this and their mind is blown. They're like, 15 jobs. I'm doing 15 jobs. Yes, absolutely. 15 jobs. And ideally you should start to delegate each one of those jobs. And so one of the main focus when we started Level Up was how do entrepreneurs, small business owners buy time back? How do they leverage a company like Level Up to actually have them do the meaningful work that they need to do to get their company to the next level?
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I talk about that on the regular. And that's why I keep saying level up. It's like, how do you level up? Because if you don't change what you're doing, nothing's going to change. Mm-hmm. And if you're that solopreneur juggling it all, being the juggler, it's not going to make a difference in your bottom line. It's just not. And, do you find that people exploring your services, struggle with the monetary investment of it all? Like, oh, I can do that myself and it's free.
A little bit. Yes. So here's what I found. And majority of our clients at Level Up, these companies have been around for quite a while. They've been around for 10 years, typically 15 years, at least 5 years. I think the youngest company that we work with was about 4.5 years when we started with them. And that's because when a solopreneur starts up a company, what I notice is they tend to value their money more than their time.
So true.
And so they will DIY a lot of things, right? And they're kind of in that DIY phase, which totally, makes sense a lot of times because they're still sort of in that feasibility phase of their business. Will this work? Will people buy my services? Will people refer my services? And so when they're in that phase and they don't have that full confidence and, full confidence that their services will take off and their business can stand on its own, they will absolutely DIY a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah, I mean, I talk from my own experience. I bootstrapped my company back in 2017 and never thought of delegating for quite a few years. Even though delegation is my thing, with a team of virtual assistants that I have. But yeah, I had to, and we spoke about this a little earlier also in our chat. I had to delegate my mind to the things that I could delegate and what that all would entail.
Yeah.
And it takes a mindset shift. Like
Yep.
once you get to that point when you're like, okay, I'm ready.
Yep.
You have to make that mindset shift. And this investment is worth it because nothing is more worth it than your time as the head rainmaker of your company. Right. And so that's something that I share quite often is, nothing is more valuable than your time. And you kind of alluded to it. And I said, you really have to think about all the things that you're doing. And I had to recently do this when I finally became an S Corp. I had to come up with my salary.
Yeah.
So my husband and I analyzing like, what all do I do? And boy, man, my salary was up there.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not what I landed on, but yeah, if you really think about all the things you do as a solopreneur when you're first starting, but same as you, I have a little bit more established companies, at least second stage, that are ready. That's the mindset. That's the time. Time's a big one because that's a time investment in the beginning. But then it might cost you a little money, but you will see it. It's like that, what is it? Delayed gratification kind of rule that'll show up. But what about yourself? When you started your company, what did you delegate first, or who did you bring on or outsource to first?
Well, when we started the company, the idea was always to have foreign service spouses and military spouses do the work.
Nice.
I don't think I've ever been a solopreneur when I started Level Up. I had another company many years past that was also it was a management consulting company, and I was a sole owner, runner, executor. And, I had like 2 contracts and that's it. Right. And when we started Level Up, the idea was to really make sure that the work coming in can be fulfilled by the folks that are foreign service spouses and that are military spouses. So the very first contract that we had, I hired somebody to do the contract.
Perfect.
And a lot of the delivery for that contract was done by a foreign service spouse. Same thing with the next person and the third person and the fourth contract and the fifth, and on it went. And we built the company that way. We're big on making sure that the structure of your company, not just from a legal standpoint, but from a systems and processes standpoint in 5 areas is set up so that you can eventually have people running those different departments, right? You've got your marketing department, you've got your sales department, you've got your delivery department, and this is your direct delivery to client for those in the service-based business. So if your product is doing strategic planning, it's the actual strategic planning for the client. That's the delivery piece of it. Nice. And there's also the financial operations of it. And then there's also the general, what I like to call general biz ops that is outside of FinOps. And a lot of that is HR, people management, recruitment, office management, etc. And so those 5 areas are typically the immediate areas that a business owner deals with when they start.
Yep.
And when we started, a good chunk of the work that we had was obviously under delivery. And so we wanted to make sure that the way delivery is structured is right from the beginning. Now, it took some time to refine. We did a lot of refinements, and that's what you just learn as a business owner. You refine every single year, every single month to make sure that your business is scalable so that every dollar that you have coming in isn't costing you $2. Every dollar that you have coming in isn't increasing in terms of costs, but you're getting some of that economies of scale. And that's through systems and processes and repeatable workflows.
Yep, absolutely. That's great. No, it sounded like you got it from the get. I love that. And, delegation is my love language. So obviously, do you have any horror stories? Has anybody like totally bombed that you've worked with? Love to hear those.
I'm trying to think. We have had some clients, or just in general experiences where they didn't pan out 100%. Yeah. And there's two things I will tell business owners that were lessons learned from those engagements and those experiences is one, bake the cake, right? Like bake the cake. If you're going to do something, do it. Don't half-ass it. Don't, say you're going to do this, but you're not going to do that. Because one thing that another friend and business owner told me the other day was, as an entrepreneur, you don't get paid to do a job. You get paid to complete a job.
Yes.
If we help you put a plan together for the quarter, for the next 6 months, and your team signs off on it, you sign off on it, and you have promised to do X, Y, and Z to get that plan moving, you got to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Pivoting, shifting because you're not trusting the process or because you're just finding that you bit off more than you can chew. I think those are sort of the killer of goals, I want to say, or killer of progress. So it's really making sure that from the get-go, you have a good plan, you have an understanding of what it takes, and then bake the cake. If the cake takes 20 minutes to cook and you're 10 minutes in, and usually that's when people are starting to kind of get antsy because they're neck deep in trying to execute, and they're not seeing maybe the, not that they're not seeing the results, but they're not seeing the full cake yet, right? If you look in the oven and you're like, oh, it's barely risen. I've done so much work. It's barely risen. When majority of,
I'm a visual person. So.
Majority of that is going to happen towards like the last, 5 minutes or whatever. And when you get to a point and you're feeling like I've been doing a lot of work, I'm in the pit of despair, like push through.
Yeah.
So absolutely. I don't know if that's a horror story or
No, that's a good, whatever it came to, it was good because like I said, with a good old analogy is like awesome because, and I often say trust but verify, and that's the same thing as the cake. You're watching that cake, you're trusting the cake is bacon, but you got to put that toothpick in. That's your little verification to make sure that it comes out clean. And I use that a lot with the people that I subcontract to on my team. I trust and I trust that I am able to communicate to them in the beginning exactly and precisely what they need to do. And I make sure I play the middleman woman in between them and our clients so that we're all on the same page and we all know and need to know what that deliverable is and what it's going to look like when it's all shiny and frosted and decorated. I'm just going with it. But yeah, so trust but verify, communicate, be clear. How you got chocolate cake, vanilla cake. Yeah. I'll just keep going on the cake thing. Yeah. I love it.
Red velvet.
Oh, yummy red velvet. Absolute fave. You nailed it. I knew you were my person. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So if there was something that people could take away today as, a golden nugget, if you had to give them some tips and tricks, if they were struggling with delegation or outsourcing in their business or struggling what to delegate, what kind of takeaway might you give them today, or words of wisdom in your experience?
I think when you're looking to delegate, look to delegate ownership of something rather than the task. That means fully communicating why a task is being done, why you do it a certain way. That opens up creativity for the person that you're delegating to, of approaching the task or approaching, a set of tasks. Maybe it's hard to delegate just one task at a time because, think of a Lego, right? A Lego creation, then they're just getting pieces of that Lego. But when you tell them that, hey, you're going to take over this set of pieces and this is what they contribute to and this is why.
Yeah.
You're making room, I should say, not leaving room. You're making room for that person to someday take ownership of it, which means career progression for them, which means lots of learning opportunities for them, which means that now you have somebody that's also caring about the why behind the task and not just the how.
I love that. I love that. I think of the fact of, I think I've shared with you that I'm like a second actor here, 27 years in corporate as an executive assistant. And I can't tell you how many times I'm like to my bosses that I was supporting, let me in, let me see and feel your vision. And that's going to help me support you better. Don't just, like you say, just give me the little nuts, but let me see what you're building. And then I will be better able to support you. And it did help me grow. Look at me. I'm like successful in my second act here. Like, who in the hell thought that I was going to be a CEO or own my own company at 48 years old when I left corporate? I'm never in a million years, but it can happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I completely vibe with the fact of ownership is the word of my company for the year. And you nailed it there too, because I do think when you have the ownership and the vision, you perform a lot better. And if you think of the side of giving a task or a project off to somebody, if you give them your vision and you make them feel your passion for what your deliverable is going to be, they will perform better.
It doesn't always work out well. You know, there's so many different factors when you're delegating. There's so many different factors when you're trying to get another team member maybe up to speed on what you're doing. And I will say, and you probably feel this way, the challenge with CEOs and small business owners or business owners in general or team leaders is sometimes they just have so much on their plate that they forget. Not that they don't intend to share the vision, right? But a lot of times they do forget.
They do. Yeah.
And unfortunately, though, the onus is on the team leader. The onus is on the leader to make sure that they have a tickler that says, remember to share your vision. Remember to share the why behind it. And I struggle with that a little bit, I'll be honest, just because I've always functioned in a just go, do it, do the next thing, do that, do the next thing, keep going. That I've really had to learn, and I'm still learning how to really pause and go, okay, let me just tell you the why behind this. Let me tell you the vision. Let me tell you the different ways this could go in 2 years and 3 years.
Yeah.
And communicating that, it does go a long way. And you can also see if that person is in alignment with where this ownership of this task, of this set of tasks is going to go.
Congrats on your awareness, your self-awareness. That is amazing.
Self-awareness is the first step. That's what they say. But it's the actual doing of it afterwards. It's really hard.
Who am I and who's working for me and what the heck did they think of me? Like, I don't care what they think of me, but as long as I'm communicating well and telling them what I need. And it's a little bit of self-awareness where I have delegated my brain to a coach who helped me get a little more self-aware. But yeah, it is a self-awareness of stepping back for a second, taking a breath and saying, ooh, I don't know if they quite understood what I wanted and why. Why is the big word, like a capital Y across the screen, is such a big word. And they've all got their own thing going on. But I think in the long run, they know that you're going to keep them around if they understand your why, because they're going to produce and you're going to give them more work and they're going to, reap the benefits. So I guess that's our takeaways, self-awareness, sharing your why, and just kind of being ownership. That's my word. Ownership, owning what first as the business person, owning what you're delegating. In fact, that knowing exactly what you're doing and delivering it well to the person that's going to do the work. And then the person that's doing it. Hear me now, people. I have hear me now. Own it. And you may not be a high up member of that company, employee even. You may just be a subcontractor. I like to say the word just. You may be a subcontractor, but own it because it'll show in your work. It really will show. So, gosh, any last words of wisdom and before I let you go today?
I will say this framework applies to any part of your life. It applies. I have 3 children. It applies. Let me start over. It applies to leading your children as well. It applies to leading folks in your community if you're a community leader. But let me back up a little bit and take that framework and apply it to how you run your household, right?
Yeah.
Giving someone ownership of the dishes in your house works wonders. Giving somebody ownership. We've recently started doing this. Both my boys cook. I will give my boys ownership of one night a week of what they're going to cook. Like, they're going to plan it. They're going to put the list of groceries that they need on the list. They're going to cook. They're going to decide when they're going to cook, how they're going to cook, and they're going to help clean up.
Ooh.
So and it's nice to like, okay, 2 nights a week, I don't have to cook.
Yeah.
And I know the boys got it. And another ownership kind of delegation that we've done at home is we're going to switch off grocery shopping every single week. So there's 3 of us who could do this in the household, right? It's me and it's my 16-year-old and my 13-year-old. And so I say, I'm on for this week to do grocery shopping. And that means I'm going to take an inventory of everything that we have at home, make a list, go to the store, and get her done. Yeah. And get her done. And that's the stuff that we need. And I tell my kids, and you're this week and you're the other week. Now, I will need you to communicate with everybody and each other to make sure that that list is fully outlined. Because if somebody's complaining that we didn't get oranges or whatever it is, it's falling on the person whose job it was to do the grocery shopping. So it's a small way of giving them ownership of a task that I know that they're going to need in their adult lives.
That's great momming there. Just saying. I could have thought about that back in the day. I'll do it with my grandchildren someday. Yeah. No, that is fantastic. I love that you do that. And I love when we can make comparisons to real life. And really what I'll say is if you doing that, it frees up you. Oh, yeah. To do some self-care, right? Yeah. Because you're like, I'm not out grocery shopping right now. And more self-care and more feeling good about yourself physically, mentally, and that you are stable makes you more aware and able to run your business better because you're not all stressed out and wired out outside of the 8 to 5, So that's a fantastic takeaway. Love that.
Yeah. Apply the framework to different parts of your life. That's my takeaway.
How about your exercise routine? I can talk about it like I exercise. I do roller skate. I started roller skating.
Oh, I love that.
And I thought I could roller skate like I could when I was, 16, but not so much. Things shift in your body as you get older.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Anyway, I'm so off topic. Anyway, I just want to thank you so much for being here today. And if anyone listening to this, if this just kind of hits home with you like it should, like I think it really could, let me know in the comments and be sure you subscribe and like and DM me if you want to hear more from Rona and more little fun analogies. And we'll have her back on again. So I want you to think about delegating to elevate and leveling up your strategies. Like I did that.
I love it. I love that.
And making things better and making yourself better by getting stuff off your plate. Have a great day, night, whenever you're listening to this, everybody. Take care, Rona. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks, Bonnie.
Bye-bye.
So that's it for today's episode of Delegate to Elevate. Head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $15,000 private VIP day with Bonnie herself. Be sure to head on over to delegate2elevatepodcast.com. That's with the number 2. And pick up a free copy of Bonnie's gift and join us on the next episode.